My name is Angelo Guerreri, and I'd like to welcome everybody to our webinar this evening. I'm excited to introduce our guest, who is a longtime friend of mine. Guillermo Milord has been with our company for over 20 years, and he has had a tremendous amount of success with our firm. He's from the Cincinnati area. Over the years, we've gotten to know each other and had the chance to work on a bunch of different projects together. And in the past 12 months, and really during the COVID time, he's experienced probably his most successful time of his entire career. His business is surging. He's having tons of success with his clients, with his team. And the best part is he finds a really good balance in his life to spend a lot of time with his children, his two boys and his wife. And so he's really kind of an example of somebody who's doing it on and off the field, as we say. He's building a business, but he also has a real strong family. And I'd asked him a couple of weeks ago, we had heard so much about all the good things he was doing, is if he would be willing to share a little time with our group and talk a little bit about what's happening with his business and within the opportunity of our company, WealthWave. And so, Guillermo, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you share.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay, Angelo? Can you hear me okay, buddy?
We can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. As Angelo had shared with you, I started in this business when I was 21. I'm 42, so that was half of my life ago. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that as time progresses. But what I can tell you is this is the most excited I've been in my career, which is a rarity to be in the world's largest industry, but also be at the point that we're in right now with so much uncertainty. We're in the middle of a pandemic, obviously, as everybody knows, and we're gonna discuss basically what WealthWave's plan and where we're headed, and maybe how you can assist us in that growth process. And I wanted to start here just by talking about our mission and what we're trying to do. Notice that says we're trying to stamp out financial illiteracy everywhere so that families can dream again. And notice it doesn't say stamp out illiteracy for people that have $500,000 or 750 in assets or more. That's everybody. And that tied into my personal mission because my mom and dad migrated here from Panama in 1974. My mom worked in social services for 40 years. My dad was he's a retired horse jockey. And what's interesting is no one ever sat down with my folks and said, Mr. and Mrs. Milord, let me help you put a plan together for yourself and for your family. But everybody tried to sell them something. Everybody tried to sell them a mortgage or an insurance policy or some sort of investment, but nobody ever tried to educate them. And this is where it ties into our vision, which fell in line with what I was trying to accomplish, is we want a world, obviously, where everyone's financially literate, has access to the tools and support that they need to use that knowledge to create a better life for themselves and for their kids. And it's interesting, there's a book called The Path, and they said the number one motivator for kids these days, you know what it is? It's the unlived lives of their parents. And as we get into this, I'm going to hit you pretty hard with a lot of this because that's our job in a short amount of time, is to disturb, but also intrigue you and make it very real, because this is happening whether we want to look at it or not. Is financial illiteracy. It's the number one economic crisis in this world. It's not coronavirus. It's actually financial illiteracy. It's one of the world's greatest threats to freedom globally. It's affecting 5 billion people. Now, here's the reality. You realize these are your friends, these are your family, these are our friends and our family. 307 billion is what it cost in 2019 for Americans because of not understanding the basics of money and how it works. So what does WealthWave do? We do basically two things. Number one, we teach people how money works. We'll talk about this book. We'll even talk about getting you a complimentary copy of this book. But what does that really mean, teaching people how money works? Well, we're taking a path where we teach people concepts and things that they may have never seen before. Even if people say, I have a financial advisor, hopefully you learn more in the next 25 minutes about money than you have maybe in the last 25 years of your life. And number two, what we do is with our E2E division is we help employees transition to entrepreneurship and become business leaders so they can build a future for themselves. Let me be very clear when I say this. On the left side, think of all the people that you know that work for money. Well, it's everyone you know. Some work harder than others. If I were to ask you, out of 100 of those people, how many of them are on pace to retire comfortably? I'm in Cincinnati. I know we have people from all across the country. We're getting ready to actually do another session just like this one here in about in about a half hour, and we're going to have people all across the country. And as Angelo had said, I've been in the business 21 years. So we've got clients all across the United States. And what I've realized is it doesn't matter if we're in Miami, Cincinnati, Los Angeles, Chicago. The answer usually ends up being 5 to 15 out of 100 are on pace to truly retire comfortably. So think about that. And then as far as employees wanting to transition to become entrepreneurs, interesting statistic USA Today put out 2 years ago, 6 out of 10 people that you and I both know, if they had the choice, they would be their own boss. So is there a market for that? Absolutely. And here's the interesting thing about WealthWave. If you've never heard of us, here's what I want you to understand. We're building an army of educators, but it's not a fly-by-night deal. It's not something we just created last week. We have 10,000 licensed professionals all across all 50 states, Puerto Rico, and Canada, as we sit right now. But what is our goal? Our goal is to have 100,000 licensed over the next decade. And the reason we want to do that is because when you think about this for just a moment, and we'll talk generations here, you realize every 7 seconds that we're talking tonight, there's a new person turning 65. So when you add up, that's 10,900 a day. And when I looked at this business, I remember hearing that and it blew my mind. People were talking about, Guillermo, your parents, when those baby boomers start retiring, there's going to be record amounts of inheritances, record amounts of 401ks, IRAs, et cetera, that are looking for a new home. Think about you. Actually, I want you to do this because hopefully you got some paper on you. Write down your current age right now. And then how old will you be 11 years from now? And think about this. In the next 11 years, you will have witnessed the largest transfer of assets ever to take place in the history of business. If you take the last 150 years of business, combine them up, and compare them to the next 11 are bigger. It's unbelievable at a rate of 1 every 7 seconds, and people need help. And we'll talk more about that as we go. But what really got me going in this business was what's called the rule of 72. The rule of 72, some of you may have heard of this. Maybe you haven't heard it explained to you in this fashion, but this was actually created by a gentleman named Albert Einstein, who said it's the 8th wonder of the world. And it's a mental math shortcut that tells you how many years it takes for your money to double. So the rule is pretty simple. You take the interest rate you're making on your money, you divide it into the number 72, and it tells you how many years it takes for your money to double. So for example, 1 goes into 72 times. If you're 20 years old, at the age of 92, your whatever dollars you have invested will double. In this case, $1 will become 2. If you make a little bit more interest, like 4%, well, now it's 18 years, and so forth with 8%. And what I want you to see here is an illustration I will never forget. This impacted me not to just be intrigued or inspired, but to actually start saving money and to actually start educating people. I became inspired to let other people know what I knew. And as you saw briefly on my bio, I went to Bowling Green State University, which is up north by about 20 minutes from Detroit, and it's in northern Ohio. And I went there for international business. So I took macroeconomics, accounting, go down the list, paid about 52 grand for a college education. And you know what I realized? I was taught how to be a great employee. I was taught how to go out and work hard for money. I was taught to go out and make the honor roll, get good grades. My mom and dad told me, son, if you want to be successful, go work for Procter and Gamble or GE, or be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, because for 20 or 30 years, and then you'll retire on a gold watch and a pension plan. And obviously that wasn't the path I chose, but I never was taught how to make money work for me. And this is just showing you, for example, if let's say Angelo is 29, and I know I'm making him a couple years older than he is, but let's say he's 29 years old and he comes to me with $10,000 that he wants to put away. And I put him in an account where he's going to make 4% interest. Well, 4 goes into 72 18 times. So at the age of 47, that 10 grand is now 20. And then another 18 years at 65, that 20 is now 40. Now think about this. How many people you know can retire on 40 grand? Not many. Where can I go make 4% interest right now? Maybe if you're the son or daughter or relative of an executive of a major bank, maybe a really, really generous CD, but it's hard to find. So let's say that, Angelo, I take real good care of you because we're good buddies. And I tell you, you know what, I'm going to get you and Amy taken care of so that you have 4% on your savings. I do that for him. Do I take his 10 grand? Do I put it in a shoebox, throw it in the safe somewhere and let it collect dust? Or do I leverage that money? I leverage that money. What do banks do with people's money? Well, it even says it on the outside of the building. It says savings and what's that L word? It says savings and loans. So then his brother Anthony comes in the next day and he says, hey, Guillermo, my favorite banker, I want to borrow 10 grand because I want to buy whatever. I'll say, great, let me let you borrow your brother's money. I'm just going to loan it to you for 6 or 8% interest. I'm going to leverage that money. And then I'm going to go ahead and give Angelo his guaranteed, what I like to call guaranteed failure. And you'll hear me talk about this more. Just remember the number 5%, because if you're not making 5% on your money, when you factor inflation and taxes, you are losing. So when people say, well, Guillermo, I've got a CD, that CD better be paying you at least 5, because if not, you're losing to taxes and inflation, which we'll get into more as we go. But now if you look at this, if I take and leverage Angelo's money and loan it out to his brother at 8, well, that 29-year-old, 10 grand is now 4 times the amount of money. So here's my point. Can you imagine, what if I were to tell you, give me 10 grand, I'll give you your guaranteed 40 when you retire. Not only that, I'm going to give you a shirt, a hat, umbrella, and a toaster and say, thank you so much for doing business with us. Send all your family and friends to us. I'll keep the change, somewhere between 160 to 640. How would you feel about that? Probably not very good. And I say this to you because hopefully this impacts you the way that it impacted me. Bottom line, this rule of 72 is either working for you or it's working against you. There really is no in between. And last I checked, for you and pretty much everyone else, every double makes a difference. Now, knowing what you know, would you ever invest your money in something paying you 1%? Any of you ever think about that? Hopefully you're changed after seeing this tonight. The answer is probably a ridiculous no. So if you're asking yourself, well, who are your competitors, Guillermo? Aren't there a lot of other companies out there like Edward Jones and Schwab and Ameriprise and TD Ameritrade that are your quote unquote competitors? Yeah, not really. 2 totally different business models. You know who our real competitors are? It's banks. Right now, you realize that there is about as much as this nation's deficit, 17 trillion, that's 12 zeros, sitting in accounts paying 0.09. So let's drive that point home a little bit more. When you look at the average interest rate on checking, savings, and money market, you can see the rates over here. It is a 0.09. So what does that mean when you plug it into the equation? That means that it's going to take 800 years for your money to double. So if you were alive in 1221, which obviously nobody was, and you had $1, congrats, it turned into 2 this year. But let's be a little bit more serious. Look at the names on the left. This is where this really hits home. Most of you, if not all of you, have an account with probably these companies you see on the left-hand side. And I want you to take a look at the savings rates or money market or interest in checking. It really makes no difference. But what we did was we took the savings rates, and if you guys have a savings account with Capital One, you're winning more so than any other bank per se, but you're making a 1% on average return on your savings, which means your money's doubling every 72 years. Now, if you need some readers, don't worry, we went ahead and zoomed that in for you. Because, like, for example, I bank with PNC, so I understand this. I keep about 1.5 months of my expenses in the bank. The rest of it is tied to a liquid account that feeds into that if I ever need it. But the key is, I know PNC is not going to make me wealthy because I have to live 1,440 years for my money to double. So this is, I like to call the wealth accumulation plan for a lot of financial institutions. Now, let's talk about if you want to borrow money from them. All of you have seen these. All of you have these. Now, do you know some people that have debt that they are not able to pay off on a monthly basis on one of these? And I think, honestly, you can stand on the front porch of where you live, look at the neighbor on the left, the right, and right across the street, and 2 out of those 3 will probably be in debt, regardless of where you live. Well, here's the path of success as far as loaning money. Here's what the average credit card interest rate is, 17%. So let's be real now. If you have 10 grand and you're making minimum payments on that, you realize that that balance is going to double every 4.2 years when you plug that into the equation of Rule 72. So hopefully it's making sense when I say it's either working for you or against you. And the scariest thing about this is none of these institutions want you to know any of this, which is where our book comes into play. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But they don't want you to know because, I mean, think about it. The biggest buildings were in the downtown metropolitan area of where you live. Most of them are what? Banks and insurance companies. And if you walk inside any of those institutions, do you see carpet anywhere on the first floor? You know, I think about downtown Cincinnati, and it's the same there. There's the PNC building, the Fifth Third building, the Heritage Bank building. There's all kinds of banks. That's one of our arenas is named after a bank. You walk inside that first floor, not only is there marble and granite on the floors, but it's up on the walls. It's even on the outside of the building. How can they afford that? They can afford it because they're leveraging our money and the people that you love and care about's money. So with that, before I get into very, very specifics about what we teach people, I just want to get you thinking about the time value of money. Every day counts. In my opinion, if something's worth doing, it's worth doing now. So start now. Number two is save regularly. It's amazing to me, in the 20 years, 21 years of doing this, we have hundreds of clients, but it blows my mind how many people will work hard for stuff. What do I mean by that? They may have a great house, a great car, and they have zero savings, or they have a beautiful home and they have no furniture, or they have no savings. They forget to do, they buy everything, but they forget to pay the most important person in this equation. It's the one doing all the work. That's you. So save regularly, whether that's 10%, 20%. And number three is be patient. Let the money compound and grow. So, okay, I get the concepts. What is it we do? Well, when we sit down with someone for the very first time, whether someone says, Guillermo, I have a 401k with an old company I need your help with, I have some 529s, I need to look at my protection of my economic value, I need some long-term care. Those are all products that we offer, sure. But we will never do business with someone for the first time unless we gather their symptoms. So when you see a doctor for the first time, if all they do is look at you and say, oh, you look like you got a headache, swallow a couple of these pills and call me in the morning, I'd probably get a new doctor. In our industry, most quote unquote financial planners or financial advisors are glorified financial service salespeople. They sell products. The reason I know that is because my first 8 years, we were pretty much just like everybody else. We would sell based on the agenda of our company as opposed to the agenda of the client. Now, here, this 7-step process that we have starts with education. And what we tell our clients flat out is, look, if you don't like me, trust me, and you can't learn one new thing from what I've shown you, then we haven't earned your business. And Todd, honestly, there's no need to move forward. Is that fair? A lot of the time they say yes. But on the flip side, Todd, if you feel you can learn something new and you can benefit from what I'm showing you, all we ask is that you take this plan, which is about 17 to 18 pages long, custom tailored for you and your family, and you implement it with us, not Edward Jones down the street, because if they were that good, they would have already shown you this by now. And I get it. People say, oh, well, my brother's been in the business since 1974. And why haven't they taught you these things? So this is about education. Number two, it's about proper protection. You know what the number one financial asset that you and I have right now? You know what it is? It's your ability to earn income. So yet we live in states where we're forced to insure our home and our car. Some states you could even do some time if you don't do it and you get caught multiple times, but we're not forced to insure our family and our loved ones. So we help people do that. Notice I didn't say sell life insurance, because when someone sells you life insurance, they say, hey, can I get a quote? Oh, you make 50 grand. Great. You need 500,000, 10 times your income. That's not what we do. We allow you to determine your economic value, whether that's being able to leave your family debt free, whether you want to leave 10 to 15 years of your income behind, whether you want to leave college funds behind, you name it, as well as long-term care, as well as disability coverage. Number three is an emergency fund. When I started here, I had 3 of them. I had a Visa, a MasterCard, and my mom and dad. Actually, that's 4, because mom and dad, I would never ask them for money at the same time. Now, those aren't good plans, obviously, but now that's changed. So we want to encourage people. And if you're nearing retirement, it's going to be closer to 12 to 24 months of liquidity that you want to have, because let's face it, emergencies, it's not if they happen, it's when they happen. And they usually happen in 3s. Number 4, debt management. Can you think of anybody who's in debt and wants to get out? Well, we help people do that. And then once they do it and they pay off Visa and Discover and MasterCard or their Harley or whatever it is, then we have them take that money and begin paying themselves, increasing that cash flow, increasing the emergency fund. And then number 6 is building wealth. There's a big difference between knowing your rate of return. We hear this all the time. Oh, I'm with Merrill Lynch, or I've been with my advisor with Morgan Stanley for X amount of time. Great. How do you feel about it? Oh, well, I made 8% last year, or I made 12% last year. That's pretty much what most people know. Most people don't know what's the best way to have tax strategies for their retirement, which I'm going to show you some examples I think you're going to be impressed with. But most importantly, in this step 6 here, if you tell me you want to retire at 65 and you want 5,000 a month coming in today's money, do you know exactly the lump sum of money that you need to have to make that a reality? Do you know how much per month you need to save to make that become a reality? That's what we call FIN number, financial independence number. And if you don't know that number, I would definitely get with the person that invited you so that you can find out that number. You deserve to have an answer to that question. And then finally, number 7, it makes 0 sense to do 1 through 6 and then not have it properly protected, meaning a will versus a living trust. Obviously, a will is better than nothing. But if you're like me and you want to be private, I don't want, if God forbid something happens to my wife and I don't want everybody to know what's passing on to my kids. That's how a will works. It's public information. It's also subject to probate. A living trust bypasses a lot of those things. Now, I'm by no means an estate planning expert, but we work very closely with many, many firms that are the experts. Now, ask yourself this whole 1 through 7, this custom tailored plan, can you think of 10 people who could not benefit from this? Forget those that can, but can you think of 10 that just, nah, I've got it covered? Most people have bits and pieces of it covered, but not the whole thing. And that's what we're here to do. And this is a snapshot worthy page. If you're on here and you're able to snapshot, this is showing you an example of financial independence number, $1 million retirement goal. What will it take for you to do that? I'm here to tell you, if you are under 40, under 45, I would probably say, and you want to retire with at least 3,000 to 4,000 a month coming in, you're going to need at least $1 million for retirement. Absolutely. So this is just showing you, if you're 20 years old, you're making an 8% return. That's a pretty lofty number, by the way. Age 20, you want to hit it by 65. That means you need to save $6 a day, which is $190 a month, and the average 20-year-old is making $22.88. Now, if you're 20, this will be easy for you. But if you're not, think back to when you were 20. If I come to you and say, hey, $6 a day, $190 a month, what are you really thinking? Are you thinking, oh, that sounds like a great idea, Guillermo? Or are you thinking, forget about it? I'll wait till I'm old like you. I'm 40 now, then I'll think about retirement. And that's what most people do. Well, now it's gone up to $35 a day, which is $1,052 a month. And the average 40-year-old last year made $4,100 a month. That's now 25% of their income. And when you're 40, you may have a family. You may have more bills. So you may know some people that say, that retirement thing, gosh, that's just a pipe dream. I don't think it'll ever happen for me. I'm just going to work forever. And I firmly believe people do not plan to fail. They just fail to plan. They don't get educated on these simple concepts. And this is one right here. If you have an advisor, my question to you would be, have they ever explained to you what one bad year can do to your money? 99.9% of the people that we come across, and probably 85% of our new clients are coming to us already having an advisor. They've never been taught about the impact of losses. Wall Street hates that word so much that they don't even call it a loss. They call it a drawdown. Well, it's only a loss if you get out. Sounds genius, right? This is just telling you, if you have 10 grand and you lose half of that money, well, if you lose 50 and then you make 50, you're not back to zero. You actually need 100% to get back to zero. So that's the math. Well, here's the craziest part. Most people say, well, that's not realistic. 50%, it's happened 3 times twice in my career, I'm sorry. It happened in 2000 to 2002 during Enron and WorldCom and then 9/11. And then it also happened again 2007 to 2009. Well, does anybody remember March of last year? The market dropped 35% in 1 month. If I were to ask you right now, do you feel that we're on the up and up in this economy? Maybe yes, maybe no. But do you have a plan? In the event of a loss, do you have a plan to protect you if the market goes down? That's a totally different question. So number one is you got to reduce your risk. That's what I feel we're experts in, reducing your risk. And I don't mean by putting it in a CD or burying it in the backyard. I'm talking about reducing your risk without changing your goals and objectives of making money. Diversify, and not the way that you may think. 60 stock, 40 bond. If you do something like that, you realize 40% of your money right now is making nothing. It's making zero because bonds are lower than ever. That's why everybody's refinancing. So you have to be invested in something that can make you money and utilizing financial vehicles. And then taxes. Understanding how these financial vehicles are taxed differently can help you make some major decisions. And you want to know how you can keep more of it in retirement, pay to the government, or leave it for your kids. So this example brings it home, in my opinion. If you save $10,000 at age 29 and you earn a 9% rate of return on that money each year, you would have $250,000 by the time you're 65. Not bad. So you have a choice. And that choice is you can pay taxes on the initial 10 grand and then have the rest of the money grow tax deferred and then have it eventually be accessible to you tax free. Or you could say, yeah, I'm going to take that 10 grand, I'm going to write it off, deduct it, of course, which really most people end up spending their tax returns. So it doesn't really become a tax deduction, it becomes a tax delay. Because what ultimately that ends up meaning is that 10 grand, when it's now $250,000, now you get to pay tax on the entire harvest. So if you had a choice, which would you take? Pay taxes on the 10 grand now to have the 250 tax free, or not pay taxes on the 10,000 and do it later? Hopefully you say, I'd rather pay tax on the seed. Well, guess what? A good chunk of our friends have their money in 401ks, IRAs, 403bs, pensions, retirement, etc., where they're going to be paying taxes on that harvest. So you see the three ways you can be taxed. And I want to show you the three components to a reliable retirement income. Is number one, you have to maintain potential for growth. What does that mean? You have to be invested in companies that create inflation. I heard that, and also the fact that the market is 10-year cycles. We teach our clients what's called 3-3-4. You're going to have 3 great years, you're going to have 3 poor years, and you're going to have 4 average years. And when I say 4, that means that you're going to make between high single digits and low double digit returns in a 10-year cycle. In the last 94 years, the stock market has been up 73% of the time. So think about this. Is your planner planning for the worst, or are they planning for the best? Because the best planners are the ones that plan for the best, but they prepare for the worst. Very important, which is reducing or removing potential for losses. And then finally, creating a predictable income that lasts. There used to be what's called the 4% retirement rule, but now where bond rates are, you realize that's now down to like 2.5. It's a very big eye opener. So if these are concepts that got your eyes open a little bit, discuss them with a financial professional, preferably the person who invited you on here tonight. And what do these numbers mean to you? I mean, look at the picture right below. You realize if we were doing this a year ago, February 23rd of 2020, and I tell you a year from now, we're going to be doing this on Zoom. Nobody's going to be going anywhere. And those that do are going to be looking like this. You would have thought I was nuts. You would have thought I was crazy. But now this is the new norm. I think it's probably going to remain the new norm for quite some time. I don't know when or how long. But what this really means to you is that there's a massive opportunity to solve these problems. Bill Gates said it best: if you want to go change the world, find a big problem and a solution for it. Because then you can catch the wave. So there's 3 industries in the world that measure in the trillions of dollars in assets and new sales. You've probably heard of this one. You probably know 5 to 10 real estate agents. Sipsey Klein, Coldwell Banker, Remax, Keller Williams, go down the list. There's tons of them. That's a $33 trillion industry. I was actually looking at it when I first started here, because everywhere I looked, I would see looking for a new career, looking for a new job, call 474, blah, blah, blah. That's how that business worked. 33 trillion. Well, then you take Starbucks, Costco, Sam's Club, Wendy's, McDonald's. That's 24 trillion. That's the retail sector. Kohl's, Dillard's, Macy's. Well, here's the interesting thing, and I'm not a rocket scientist, but I figured this out. When you take industries 2 and 3, you add them up and you combine them times 2, it's just a little bit bigger than the financial industry. Everyone you know works for money. Everyone you know needs to know what to do with money. And if you look or smell like you know anything about it, people don't want to hear from you. They're dying to hear from you. And this is how big this opportunity is. The fact that I'm a Gen Xer, I was born in 1978, I'm sandwiched right in between the 2 largest generations. Most of my parents and all their friends are going to be transferring $68 trillion. Good thing we can help them with that. Most of my peers have no retirement savings. 34% of them have 0 retirement. And they're less likely to max out their retirement plans than millennials. And then millennials, 6 out of 10 don't know how much life insurance to buy. And these are people now starting families. So here's the real numbers. As of 2019, have people saved enough? Guillermo, we've got so many other financial competitors of yours out there. Yeah, we do. But you realize most of those firms want less clients with more money. The average financial advisor is 57 years old. They're already thinking about retirement as well. They don't want to go help somebody save a couple $100s a month. They want clients that have more money. That's why a lot of people are raising their minimums. Look at the average numbers for these generations in savings. The proof is in the numbers. So let's talk about our not so secret weapon. For being on here tonight, we're going to get you a complimentary copy, but there's a catch. This is the #1 or #2 selling book on Amazon right now. And the catch is this: if you do get your complimentary copy by reaching out to the person who invited you, we just want you to read it. It's an hour-long read, a lot of pictures, my way of reading. I love reading, that kind of style. A lot of pictures. You have to read the book, but then you have to notify the person who gave it to you on what your favorite part was and who they should share the book with. So the good thing is it's not so secret anymore because it's been featured all over these different channels. It's going to be on the Ellen and Oprah show, hopefully this year if pandemic slows down a little bit, but definitely it's going to be in the next 12 to 24 months. So keep an eye out for that. And the great part is if you're skeptical like I am, it's already been fact checked for you. It got fact checked on January 29th of last year at 9:01 a.m. by CNBC. And what did they say was the most intriguing part of that book? The Rule of 72. It is truly magical if you make it work for you. So as I close out tonight, if you're looking, because we need more people, whether that's you or someone that you know that is of integrity, great at building relationship skills, professional, good with people. We're not looking for the used car salesperson that can sell anybody anything. That's the concepts sell themselves. We're looking for obviously integrity first, people skills second, hardworking third. Our business is fully recession proof. This last year was technically my third recession of my career with the same company. We had our best year ever. And as Angelo had told you, I'm home for dinner every night with the family. Travel is minimal and we're communicating more efficiently than ever before because of these tools that we're currently using right now. Personality proof. We have a system and the system works. You just have to follow it. And then pandemic proof. I don't know how else to say it, but we're having an absolute blast because people need us more now than ever. And we're able to reach more people faster. So I think this is the perfect way to close it before I hand it over to Angelo. How important is this that we covered tonight? Well, I'm a big person on numbers. I like stats. I don't like smoke. I don't like carbs, if you will. I'm not the fluff guy. I like protein. I like content. I want you to hit me and shoot me straight. Standard & Poor's and Gallup, back in 2009, they did a study where they interviewed countries all around the world to see they asked 5 basic questions for financial literacy. And here's your top 10. Notice the United States not on the list. Then we have the world's happiest countries. So the world's happiest countries, if you look at the yellow sections, you'll notice, isn't it ironic? 8 out of 10 of the most literate are also 8 out of the 10 happiest. Look where the US ranks. My mom and dad fought to get into this country. I know countless people that fought to get into this country, greatest country in the world, and we don't even rank in the top 10. I would say, and Angelo will amen this, I'm sure, and his leadership team, we're just getting started. We're just getting started here. This is huge. So we believe that when you aim at literacy, you will hit happiness. What's not being talked about right now? They're talking about masks. You know what they should be talking about? Depression, lack of self-confidence, lack of self-character. You build these things up, it has proven that you will help people become happier, which is what we're all about. So take the next step. Reach out to the person who invited you. Share your thoughts about this business. What intrigued you? What didn't intrigue you? Ask about your free copy, about the book. You know the catch. You got to read it, and then you got to share it. So with that, Angela, thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate everything, our friendship, of course, #1, and then the opportunity to be in business with you.
Thank you, Guillermo, and we appreciate it. What a great message. There's not really much left to be said after that. I just want to let all of you know that, there's someone who invited you on tonight. Get back with them. They'll get you a copy of the book. And obviously you may have some questions that you want answered. We'll be happy to answer those for you and do a follow-up. We do these types of events periodically. So if this is something that intrigues you, we will follow up with you and to take care of that. Thank you, Guillermo.